Most e-bikes make you choose either a torque or a cadence sensor that you're stuck with unless you buy a completely different bike, but the Troxus Trax LT has both and gives you the ability to switch between them. So which sensor mode is best for you? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, and thanks for joining me today. My name is John. We'll dive into the Trax LT in just a sec, but first I've got to ask a couple of favors. First, we really do appreciate it if you're subscribed to the channel, so if you're looking for top-notch e-bike reviews with objective data to help you in your buying decision, please make sure to hit that subscribe button before we jump in. We're super excited to share that we just hit 80,000 subscribers, so if you haven't joined us yet, please help us hit that 100K mark that's right on the horizon. And one more thing, we spend a ton of time and effort riding, testing, filming, and writing about all the bikes that we review, so if we're able to help you find a bike you want to purchase, please use our affiliate link in the video description as a way to say thank you. We are supported by commissions that we earn from sales, so using that link helps us keep the lights on and keeps new reviews coming your way. But enough about that, let's talk Trax. There are a few things that really stood out to me about this bike, with the biggest being that combination of torque and cadence sensors. We'll dive into some other reasons you may want to go with one or the other of those two modes later, but basically you can use the torque mode if you want it to feel like a regular bike, but if you want a more relaxed and easy ride, you can go with the cadence mode. Regardless of which mode I tested the bike with, I noticed that its motor felt super smooth and responsive, and it was also nearly silent. The Trax LT has a 350 watt rear hub motor made by Giabo, so it's got a fairly reserved amount of power, but I found it to be plenty effective for the size and weight of this bike. And that's another thing actually, this bike weighs 60 pounds, which is on the lighter side for an e-bike, and it felt really nimble and zippy and a lot of fun to ride. We like to call this style of bike a city cruiser because it blends the simplicity and the quick handling of an urban bike with the comfort and riding position of a Dutch-style cruiser, and this one checked all the boxes we were looking for. To run through the rest of the Trax LT's specs, it has a removable 48 volt, 480 watt hour battery that's UL 2271 certified and fully integrated into the underside of the down tube. There's an 8-speed Shimano Altis drivetrain with a 42-tooth chainring, a 12 to 32-tooth cassette, and a KMC chain operated by a rapid-fire shifter on the right handlebar. The brake system is the Tektro E3520 system with 2 piston calipers and 180mm rotors. We have a lockout suspension fork from Uding up front with 60mm of travel. The bike uses 27.5 by 2.2 inch Kenda Quick 7.5 street tires, and it sports alloy fenders on both wheels. There's a cargo rack on the back of the bike with a 55-pound capacity, an integrated tail light, and a flashing brake light. The saddle is custom from Tingbo, and then moving up to the cockpit, there's an adjustable stem connected to a set of 700mm Dutch-style handlebars with a 35-degree back sweep. The bike has a thumb-operated throttle lever on the left handlebar next to its big control panel, and then in the center, there's an integrated headlight and an animated color display. A few last things before we wrap it up. The Trax LT is a Class 2 e-bike with its throttle and pedal assist system limited to 20 miles per hour. It comes in 2 frame sizes, a small and a medium. It has a total payload capacity of 300 pounds, and it's available in 2 colors. Ours is of course silver, but there's also one called dusk blue. But that covers all the specs and components, so let's check out what happened in our standardized performance tests and compare this bike with similar models we've tested previously. The Trax LT's hydraulic disc brakes did a pretty solid job in our brake test. Our tester Griffin pedaled up to 20 miles per hour and applied the brakes at a predetermined line so we could measure the distance the bike traveled before stopping. We repeated the process 3 times and then took an average of our results, which turned out to be 23 feet on the nose. The average for all commuter e-bikes we've tested is 22 feet 4 inches, so the Trax LT's results were a little beyond the average, but still well within our normal range, and in practice they felt great. Still, there wasn't an obvious reason why the bike's result was below average, so I dug into our data a little deeper to try and find out. 3 of the main things we looked at all checked out. So first, we've tested this Tektro brake system in the past and it's generally done well. Second, the Trax LT is average or maybe a little lighter than average for this category, so it should be pretty easy for this brake system to slow down. And third, its tire width is right about where we'd expect it, so it's not lacking in traction or grip. I decided to whittle down our list of other bikes to only those with this style of frame, handlebars, and riding position, so basically just the city cruiser subcategory. Those bikes had an average result of 22 feet 10 inches, so the Trax LT lined up much closer. Bottom line, it seems like this kind of upright riding position does affect braking a little bit, but the Trax LT is spec'd well with safe and effective brakes. Next, we'll talk about our speed test, and this is a really unique one. I tested the Trax in both its torque and its cadence sensing modes to see how fast it could go in each pedal assist setting, and I also tested out the throttle to find out how quickly it accelerated. Let's see what happened during those tests, and then we can talk about the results back here. All right, so let's do a speed test here on the Troxus Trax LT. This time we're gonna do it in the torque sensing mode, but we'll do another test in the cadence sensing mode. So kind of starting off with no pedal assist around 12.5 miles per hour. And honestly, that's really comfortable. Definitely faster than what we usually get on heavier bikes. So that's very nice. Let's go ahead and bump up to PAS1. All right, I don't notice a whole lot of difference there in feel. I can't really hear the motor, but there's a slight little bit of power that I feel, just a little extra push. And obviously making a difference in speed, so we're going kind of around 14, I think, pretty consistently, maybe up toward 14.5. Well, let's go ahead and go up to PS2. All right, that I'm definitely noticing more assistance there, able to shift up kind of with the same level of effort. That's going to be very important in this test. Maintaining kind of consistent pressure. Here we are going up to 16 miles per hour or thereabouts. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS3. All right, feels about the same. If I like give it a little extra push to really get a sense of the torque sensor, then I do notice that I'm going a little bit farther with a pedal stroke here. So we're up to around 18.5 or 19 miles per hour. Yeah, somewhere in between there, I think, consistently. Let's go up to PAS4. Again, that feels about the same. Honestly, this motor is super quiet. I can't really even hear it. Wouldn't really be able to tell that it's an e-bike just by the noise. So we are definitely going up to 19 and then a little bit over here, maybe around 19.5 at times. Yep, and then let's go up to PAS5. Not a whole lot of room left to go, but we are up to that 20 mile per hour limit. And then I can kind of tell when the motor sort of stops there. There's a little bit of drag at that point once I do hit 20. So yeah, all right, that'll be our torque sensor test. Let's check out how the cadence sensor does. All right, so we are back on the Trax LT for a cadence sensor speed test. And we're gonna do things a little bit different here. I'm just kind of soft pedaling here, right around 10.5 miles per hour. Really we just want to see what the sort of preset speed limits of each pedal assist setting are. So let's go ahead and go up to PAS1. And it's possible we're kind of already above the limit for this setting. I don't really notice anything. I'm gonna back off even more and just kind of ghost pedal, and we'll see where that takes us. It's honestly holding pretty steady. So, okay, that one seems to be set right kind of at 10 and a half miles per hour, sorry. Let's go up to PS2. All right, definitely noticing that picking up. I'll still soft pedal. So it looks like we're gonna land around 13 miles per hour here, maybe 13 and a half. Yeah, 13, okay. Let's go up to PS3, shift up to 7th. Super smooth, still extremely quiet. Very surprised by that. And it's just pushing me right along. This one seems to be maybe around 15 and a half miles per hour. Okay, let's go up to PAS4. A little bit of a nudge there, moving up in speed. Shift up to 8th gear. And we're kind of hitting right around 18 miles per hour here in PAS4. Yeah. Between 17 and a half and 18, depending on the path. And then finishing off in PAS5. Another little boost. I'm, again, not applying any effort at all really to the pedals, just kind of keeping them turning. And we are at and a little above that 20 mile per hour speed limit. Feels nice. All right, let's go check out the throttle. All right, let's go ahead and test out the throttle here. We'll go from 0 to 20 in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, a little slower picking up, but now we're building pretty steadily. I like that it's not super punchy. We're up to 16, 17, 18, come on, 19, and 20. All right.
All right, to recap the numbers for each test, I started off pedaling with only leg power in the torque sensor test at 12.5 miles per hour. With the motor activated, I reached 14.2 miles per hour in PAS1, 16.1 in PAS2, 18.6 in PAS3, 19.3 in PAS4, and 19.9 miles per hour in PAS5. In the second test with the cadence sensor, I started off with lighter pedaling at 10.6 miles per hour, which turned out to be right at the limit of PAS1, so my speed didn't change when I turned on the assist system. I went up to 13 miles per hour in PAS2, 15.5 in PAS3, 17.9 in PAS4, and 20.3 miles per hour in PAS5. So if we graph all of that data, we can see the different speed profiles in each test. And what we usually look for is an angled line that shows equal jumps in speed between all of the pedal assist settings. And that's exactly what the cadence mode showed. You can see that the highest assist settings in the torque mode test didn't make quite as much of a difference in speed as the lower ones did, but A, that might have looked a bit different if I'd have pedaled slower to start, and B, I think the bike did a solid job overall because each of its assist settings did feel distinct. In the throttle acceleration test, the results were about what we expected. The LT got up to speed steadily, but it was a little sluggish at the start because its 350 watt motor is relatively low powered in the grand scheme. The Trax definitely felt a bit zippier when pedaling, and overall I think its motor felt appropriate for its size, weight, and style. In our range test, we rode the Trax LT in PAS5 on our local bike paths until its battery ran out of charge, and we used Strava to track our mileage. We did the same thing in PAS1 after we recharged the battery, and this process gave us a minimum and maximum range of 38 and 60 miles. Troxus advertises a range of 55 miles, which our testers exceeded, so we've got to give the brand some kudos for their realistic estimate. If we compare our results with those from other commuter e-bikes, the Trax LT came in right around average in the low power test, but a little above average in the high power test. Right now, the minimum and maximum average for that category is 30.4 and 58 miles. Going by the bike's motor and battery specs, we expected our PAS5 test to take about an hour and 20 minutes and give us about 24.5 miles, so we were really happy to get about an extra 50 minutes and 13.5 miles. We tested the bike in its torque sensing mode, so its motor output was able to fluctuate, and that likely helped it go the extra distance and time. In terms of practical use, you should be able to get multiple round trips on the bike if you're using it as a commuter, even if you have a long ride into work, so we think it did a great job in this test. And it's worth pointing out that the battery should only take about 5 hours to charge with the included 2-amp charger. Next up is our fan favorite, the hill test at a spot called Hellhole Trail. We tested the Trax LT's throttle and pedal assist system to see how well it could climb steep hills. This one is 1/3 of a mile from bottom to top, the path is paved, and it has a 12% average grade. I'll pass you over to our tester Justin for this one, and I'll see you back here later.
We are at a hellhole on the Troxus doing the throttle test, so we'll see how this does. It's kind of their lightweight model. Usually means they don't stock with the most powerful motor. We're in PS5. We're gonna see if this makes it up. Like I said, the motor felt kind of more natural toned down to 5, 4.6. Just starting on this steep section. I don't think we're gonna make it unless a miracle happens. I don't think it's gonna happen. 2.4, and I gave it my best. So no, that's how far it made it up on throttle. Didn't make it up again, not necessarily a horrible thing. Given kind of this style of a bike, they're kind of going for more lightweight, natural feeling. So we'll turn around, do the pedal test, and see how it goes. Okay, we're back out on the Troxus, and did not make it up on the throttle, but we're gonna see how it does on the pedal. Right away, kind of started in 7th gear, shifting down to 4th. Again, trying not to pedal too hard here. On about 8.9, 8.8. Having to put just a little bit more into this. Not necessarily bad. Definitely better than a regular bike. Shifting down to 3rd. Down to 6.7. 6.6. So I think it'll be right about that 6.7, 6.6 level on that first steep section. I'll let you listen to the motor here. Yeah, I don't think you're hearing much. There's not much for me to hear either. There was a little bit of whine through the last bit steep section. We'll see if it does it here. I'm gonna shift down. And there's that little bit of noise as I climb this hill. So the motor's definitely on the lightweight side of things. Again, I think that's kind of what they're going for. You'll notice I'm breathing a little bit heavier, so I have to push just a little bit, but it does feel natural. And we will definitely be getting to the top of Hellhole. But no, it's not, this isn't a rocket ship. It's a more natural urban style, city style, lightweight bike. So kind of what I would expect. Haven't checked the specs on the motor. Kind of do that on purpose so it doesn't bias me. I can just kind of report the facts to you. So as we finish this up, we'll go to the tape and see how it did.
Okay, so the Trax wasn't able to finish the throttle portion of the test, but Justin did make it to the top when pedaling. He finished that part in 2 minutes and 9 seconds with an average speed of 8.4 miles per hour. When it comes to the throttle results, we weren't really surprised that the bike didn't make it. We actually have yet to test a bike with a 350 watt hub motor that's able to finish on throttle. That really just comes down to power output. This motor has 50 Newton meters of torque, and going by the controller up to 720 watts of peak output, which just isn't enough to overcome Hellhole. And this is exactly why we use this location for our testing. If we compare the LT's pedal test results to those of other bikes with 350 watt motors, it's about 13 seconds slower than average, and that really just seems to come down to weight. The LT is fairly light for an e-bike at about 60 pounds, but most of the ones we've tested with this size of a motor were between 45 and 50 pounds on average, and most of the other bikes of this style had more powerful 500 watt motors, so the Trax did require a bit more legwork to get to the top. As Justin said, a more natural pedaling experience does seem to be what Troxus was going for, and it didn't feel out of place on this bike. Do keep in mind that the Trax LT's throttle is probably best used to give you a brake when you're pedaling, but you're not likely going to be able to rely on it for anything other than fairly small hills. If you're tackling something on the bigger side, you're probably going to need to pedal, but you can take advantage of the cadence sensing mode to help out with that. We did our hill test with the Trax in its torque sensing mode, but I tried both modes out at our secondary location called Pilot Hill. The torque mode actually ended up a little faster because I had to keep a fairly quick pace to avoid losing momentum, but the cadence sensing mode definitely felt noticeably easier. All of that is to say that this bike definitely makes a difference on hills, but it does encourage you to pedal actively. We have one last major thing to go over, and that's the Trax LT's ride quality. This is sort of a blanket title for a bunch of things that contribute to how the bike feels to ride, including sizing, riding position, comfort, the user interface, and a few other things. Let's head back out to the bike paths and talk about the basics, and then I'll see you back here shortly. All right, let's talk about the ride quality here on the Trax LT. So this is a Dutch style commuter. Also something we like to call a city cruiser. So a nice lightweight frame, very nimble bike with a comfortable upright riding position. There are two frame sizes here. Let's see, we are on the larger of the two. The height range for both of them is 5 foot up to 6'3". I'm 5'11", so I'm kind of right in the middle of the height range on this large frame. It's very comfortable. I also, took advantage of the adjustable stem here, so I raised my handlebar height and brought the reach a little bit closer. I like a more upright riding position, but if you want something with a bit more of a forward lean, you could set that lower and then kind of lean into it a little bit more. There is a suspension fork up front to help smooth out the ride. Got to double check the travel on that. It's listed differently in a couple different places at the moment, but or we could just measure it. But in any case, it's right about where we would want it for this style of bike, enough to smooth out some rough pavement or speed bumps. The tires here are 27.5 inch by 2.2. They are made by Kenda, and they've got a nice street tread pattern for good traction on paved surfaces. And that wheel size also makes rolling over bumps a little bit more comfortable than something smaller would, in addition to the squish of the suspension fork here. And then this bike has a 350 watt hub motor, which is kind of perfect for the size and weight of this bike and its style. It's not overpowered, it's not underpowered, it's kind of right where you want it. And then this bike, of course, has that very cool and pretty unique at this point in time feature of being able to switch between torque and cadence sensing modes. So, if you want to pedal actively, you might want that torque sensing mode, which is kind of where we are now. And that allows it to feel really responsive, just kind of like a natural analog bike. And then if you want the cadence sensing mode, very easy to switch between. I was very happy about that. All you have to do is hold the plus button, and there's a little diagram of a rider on a bike that pops up in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And then we can just take advantage of those preset speed limits. So you might choose this if you want a little bit more control over your speed, if you don't really want to pedal actively. Like I'm ghost pedaling right now, so I'm just kind of spinning the pedals to keep the motor on, but I'm not really applying any effort. And then that might also be nice if you've got a lot of hills that you need to go over. You'll still probably have to pedal to some degree, but that constant output of motor power is going to really help you out, where you'll have to put in a little bit more effort if you're using the torque sensing mode. But in any case, I think that wraps it up. Let's go ahead and bounce back to the studio.
So overall, I'd say this bike's ride quality is great. It's super comfortable, it's fun and zippy, it's really responsive, and I really loved how easy it was to switch between the torque and cadence sensing modes. The only real critique I have is pretty minor. I was happy to see that the bike's tail light serves as a brake light when you squeeze the brake levers, but I'd also like to see turn signals in the future so riders are better able to communicate with other cyclists and drivers on the road.
We've seen an increasing number of e-bikes at the Trax LT's price point that have turn signals integrated into their taillights or seat stays. Plus, the bike's display already supports that function, so I think it just makes sense. That said, I did really like this display. It has a little road animation that plays when you're moving. It's pretty easy to read, and of course, color screens are always more appealing than basic black and white screens. We're usually pretty big fans of city cruiser bikes because they blend really fun handling with a super comfortable ride, and we learned that the Troxus Trax LT has those elements, but also adds an extra dose of cool with its ability to switch between its torque and cadence sensor modes. This bike felt super natural and responsive when using the torque mode, and it also made pretty efficient use of its battery capacity. In its cadence mode, pedaling took less effort, and going uphill was easier, so it was really awesome to get the benefit of both of these things just by holding a button. Looking back at our test data, the bike did a solid job. It's a little less powerful than some similar bikes we've tested, but that really only came into play on hills, so if you live in a relatively flat area, you shouldn't even notice, and if you do have some hills around you, you can sort of choose your difficulty with the two sensor modes. We think this bike would make a great commuter or an equally fun leisure bike, and ultimately, I think there's some serious appeal for most riders out there. For starters, our entire team had a lot of fun riding this bike, but its feel and behavior can be adjusted to match the preferences of just about anyone. If you want to take a closer look, you can use the links in the video description to check out our written review or head over to the Troxus website. And as a reminder, please use that affiliate link if you decide to make a purchase. We really appreciate your support. Please also consider giving this video a like if you found it helpful, and let us know if you have any questions down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Troxus Trax LT.